A summer vacation Tuesday for its 365 edition with Mac and Mac. We're lucky enough to have Hunter Brody from the best show ever on both the Fanatic and NBC Sports Philly join us. Hunter, I don't know if you heard the tease that I used right before we went to break. We're going to get out of here in about a half an hour and end early. So if there's anyone out there that needs to get on Ticketmaster to get their hands on Eagles tickets, we want to allow them to do so. Let's say you got a flash email while you're on the air here with us. You see a little thing blink in the computer for Hunter Brody from the Philadelphia Eagles. And they offered you 4 tickets, face value, any game this year to be played at Lincoln Financial Field. And you get to choose which one you want. For face value, either to use or turn around and make a profit maybe, because it's going to be a hot ticket come game time when they match up with that team this year. Who are you taking this year? What is the hottest ticket for the Philadelphia Eagles this year?
It's a great question. By the way, can you guys hear me fine or no?
Yeah, we got you.
Just making sure before we started to kick things off. See, the thing is, I want to say Jonathan Gannon so bad because I thought it would be electric, but it's so deep into the season. I don't know where we're going to be at. I guess I'll go with the safe pick here and pick the Dallas Cowboys. And if I decide I want
always the safe pick.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's the easiest bet. It's the best way to go about it. But if Gannon was slotted in maybe week 8, week 9, where, it's a little bit different than the back end of the schedule, it's definitely a run for the money for sure.
Now, what about San Francisco?
There you go. That's the safe pick.
That's a good one, too.
Purdy-led 49ers are coming in December, Hunter. You're going to take the Cowboy game over the 49er rematch from the NFC Championship game?
Listen, you could sell me that the 49ers is the right pick for sure, but there's just something about the Cowboys. Come on.
Yeah, that's recency bias with the 49ers. I mean, the Cowboys are the Cowboys.
It's a recent pick you have to make. It's the
2000. I just don't think the angst, granted, it's high now, but I don't think it'll continue for that long. It's kind of late in the season. When is San Francisco in here?
December, yeah.
I think December. So I think Eagles fans, it'll slow. The hate for Dallas will continue because Dallas is going to be a good team. They're going to be in it. It's going to be Eagles, Dallas for the division. It'll be a big game. I think Hunter's right. I think it always defaults to the Dallas.
You heard him, Jody. Can we clip that? Can we clip that little party set? I don't hear that very often.
I caught some of your trial this week. You got screwed, buddy. Hanging judge was out for you. That was just flat out wrong. But
I tried saying the same thing. They don't listen to me over there.
Much like Tyrone, I'm going to have to tell you that you're wrong. San Francisco is the game that you want to be at this year. If you could only go to one Eagle game, you want to go to the 49er game, not the Cowboy game.
I'm surprised that Arizona, they might be the worst team in football. Who cares about that game? If your anger towards Jonathan Gannon is that deep, and by the way, week 17 when Arizona might have 3 wins, I don't think.
Yeah, but see, here's the reason it's good. The Eagles can play not only their second team but their third team, John, and still win by 4 touchdowns.
Yep.
That's a good thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that might be a game what they take for granted. It might be closer than expected because Arizona's so bad.
You think Gannon's rocking down Broad Street in the G-Wagon that week?
Yeah, we're going to gut him. He's not going to say we're going to gut him. But interesting, since you bring up JG, we haven't talked JG in a while, so I'll go. Vic Fangio throwing fuel on the fire, refusing to rule out. He got asked, if the Cardinals didn't tamper, could you be the defensive coordinator in Philadelphia? Now, this drives me insane, Hunter, because, the timing doesn't match up. It doesn't make any damn sense. He already accepted the Miami job after the NFC Championship game, so before the whole tampering issue. By saying that, he's saying, oh, I would have been Josh McDaniels. I would have been unprofessional. I would have backed out of my Miami deal. Why is this goofball saying this down in South Florida?
It's a great question. I don't know. I think if I was in his shoes, I'd be going the exact opposite way. And just, I wouldn't even mention this whatsoever. And I would let it kind of die out, fizzle out. And then we just work on whatever we need to work on down where he's at. So I don't know. I don't know what the pros and cons are. Sometimes when I look at this and I see somebody start spewing nonsense or spewing things that make me raise my eyebrows, I lay out the pros and the cons and where does this go? Where, if you weigh this out, what are the pros from this? I really can't even find any whatsoever. So I have no idea what he's doing. Maybe it's just as simple as when you have a name like Vic Fangio and when you're highly regarded as much as he is, you just don't care. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, does it matter? I'm Vic Fangio. I just tell you how it is, and it is what it is. While someone like Nick Sirianni or someone else who's new and fresh in the league have to think about what they say, even though Sirianni doesn't do that anyway. So what the hell am I talking about? I'm just looking for answers.
And I think the answer is he hadn't signed off with Miami yet. They might have had a verbal agreement, but until you go to paper, it's not a done deal. And that's why he could sign a contract to work with the Eagles for 2 weeks.
No, that part is true, but I'm saying you are signaling. That's why I said that you are signaling, oh, I'm an asshole. I'm going to go back on my verbal agreement and say, oh, screw you, Maya. That's what you're saying.
Right. Yeah, you're admitting that where we're at now wasn't even that important to me. If I had a better opportunity, maybe I would have scurried out of here and went to a different town.
Which I think is a terrible look. And that's one of the reasons when I brought it up first with Jody, I said, look, I give Vic Fangio enough credit to say he's not going to beat Josh McDaniels. He wasn't going to leave Miami at the altar. Evidently, I was wrong. They basically said, oh, I don't care. My word means nothing. Wait.
There's one big difference here in comparing those two things. They announced that McDaniels was the coach of the Colts. They had officially announced that he was the coach of the Colts. There had never been an announcement that Fangio was going to be the defense coordinator of the Dolphins. So there's similarities there, but they are not the exact same thing. There's one thing for the parties to know: we're in agreement. We're going to get this done. We haven't signed off on it yet. Fangio says, oh, by the way, I want to go coach the Eagles for 2 weeks and help them out with the Super Bowl. And Miami had to say, okay, if you really want to do that, as long as you're coming back to it. That had never been announced. That had been speculated, Schefter reporting, blah, blah, blah. The Dolphins didn't come up and say, Vic Fangio is our new defense coordinator. Oh, the Colts came out and said, you guess who our new coach is? Josh McDaniels. They announced it to the world. So if Fangio had done what he did, it would not be the same as what McDaniels did.
It's still a terrible look, though.
It is. So it's funny. So
terrible look. Now, maybe Hunter's right, and he's got such a reputation where it doesn't matter to him, and but it's a bad look. You don't do that. You don't agree to terms with the team and say, oh, you know what? Forget that. Jonathan Gannon got another job. I'm going to stick with Philly. My whole premise was he wouldn't do that. Evidently he would. And that's great. But that's not a good look for a professional coach, especially one. And it might signify why he was a failure as a head coach, because it's a bigger job and you got to think about stuff like that. It might signify why he was a failure as a head coach, but just throwing it out there. Hunter?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's interesting that the difference for Jody is if, let's say, two parties have the same exact conversation, but one ends up being public and the other is still behind closed doors. But Vic Fangio speaking the same, they're having the same dialogue and they agree to the same terms, but one is public knowledge and one isn't. That's the difference in the two stories. I don't know. Is it? Should it be viewed differently or should it be viewed the same?
No, it's two different things. One, you've told your fan base. Because that's why you have public announcement, is to get the fan base excited, keep them in the loop, whatever. Those are not two similar agreements. If you get the blessing for the party you're cutting deal with, and we're going to announce this, yeah, go ahead. Well, then it's a done deal. Once it's been announced publicly, it's a done deal. If it's we're going to hold off on this, well, then it's not a done deal yet. Yeah, that's the way I look at it. Maybe I'm too much of a media guy that, when the media gets involved,
and by
that's
the way,
like the rubber stamp.
I'll just add one last thing to it. Sean Desai, who's his guy, by the way, and they're very close, he kind of screws him too, because now everybody knows Oh, Sean decides the consolation prize.
Yeah, that's you know what, that might be the story from our side here, from our angle in this realm. There's so much going on sometimes. Sixers, James Harden, this, that. You lose a little bit of what Vic Fangio says down in Miami. You know what I mean? But now that's the angle. I might snag that and put it in the back pocket.
All right, since we went there, let me get a Hunter Brody take on Sean Desai. Gets the job don't hear from him forever. John and I used to bring it up like once a week. And at some point, we'll hear from the new Eagle coordinators because they never made them available. And then finally they did. And I tip my hat to Desai because I don't know if he's going to be as good as Jonathan Gannon, better, very similar, exactly the same. But I'll tell you this, he's smarter in his choosing of how to handle the media than Jonathan Gannon ever was. I know John liked him and he liked John, but Gannon could open mouth and insert foot with the best of them. Desai came out and he was aware they're going to have to feel us and we represent Philadelphia. He checked every single box that you need to check to suck up to the fan base here in Philadelphia when he had his first chance to talk to the people. He going to be that much more well-liked than Jonathan Gannon? Or if the Eagles come out and don't blitz the first 3 weeks of the season, will he be on the hatred list just like the former defensive coordinator was?
It's hard to be worse than Jonathan Gannon, so if that's where the bar is at the bottom, I think he'll be better than that. He was impressive, though. He was definitely impressive with the way that he spoke and the way that he looked at the media, answered the questions. Every time I feel comfortable about saying that, though, I just think, well, Nick Sirianni completely sucked and butchered it completely, and he became a fantastic head coach. So how much value can I really put into this? But look, I will say that he sounded like he's got a good head on his shoulders and a good approach here. And from what we're hearing, yes, it is a very similar style. And stylistically, a lot of the teams in this league are running something similar. But it does sound like they're going to tweak some of the flaws in Jonathan Gannon's side of the scheme, where it's going to be similar and it's going to have the same vibe, but maybe have a bit more aggression to it. So saying all the right things, I don't know. I'd be lying if I said I knew what it was going to be like. Saying the right things, though, that's a good start.
I didn't know. We'll continue down the Sean Desai Avenue. Didn't mean to go here, but what the heck?
Yeah, whatever.
Matt Patricia is also here because I bring up, I put up my own antenna with the consolation prize. And then you have the safety net on top of the consolation prize. All of a sudden you create a new role for a longtime defensive coordinator, senior defensive assistant. One of the weirdest things about this, Hunter, is his past relationship with Darius Slay. Now, Darius Slay, they kept away all spring. They kept him away from us. Typically, Slay's the first one up there. Wednesday during game week, Slay's the first guy to talk to us. When they did the podium stuff during COVID, all that kind of crap. They kept him away from us. All of a sudden, he's back out in Detroit doing Calvin Johnson's celebrity golf tournament. Somebody out there gets a hold of him, asks him about Matt Patricia because they know, even better than the people here, those two hated each other. And Slay handled it like the professional he is. He said, it's another day at the office. We both got the same goal, just going out there to compete, win a championship. So that's the main focus. Bang, over, done. Why the Eagles hiding Darius Slay? Why is Matt Patricia? Why, Hunter? Explain it to me.
I don't know. I think it was strange to begin with. Look, if Matt Patricia was some wizard and it's like this guy's got all the answers and he's fantastic and he knows it all, then I would understand maybe if there was some beef and there was some, heads banging or whatever. It's like, okay, but he's got such a sharp mind and there's so much we can pull from him. And trust me, he's got the X's and O's all down. But what the hell has Matt Patricia ever done to say, oh, this is a no-brainer lock. Let's create a role and put him on the website, take it down before anybody sees it and starts all this drama. So I don't know. Look, I know that Howie works in mysterious ways. I'm a big Howie guy. I would think, though, that they had a conversation prior to hiring him and bringing him in. Now, maybe that's me being naive and I'm a fool here and getting fooled by Howie Roseman, but I don't know. Like, I would think that there would be some dialogue knowing Darius Slay is one of your top dogs, but at the same time, Was Darius Slay 100% coming back last season? Where were they at? At some point, was he going to be traded? And at that point, they didn't care about what Darius Slay thought about it. It's an interesting relationship. But for me, it's like, once again, it goes back to the pros and cons. Does Matt Patricia, do the pros outweigh the cons for him coming in here? Can you find someone else? Do you need him in here, really? I don't know. I don't think it's the greatest move in the world, but at the same time, is Matt Patricia going to be the thing that blows this all up? And if that's the case, then you're not thick enough to begin with at the end of the day, right?
All right, Hunter, I got a crystal ball one for you. We're jettisoning ahead. Week 1.
Yep.
In New England, coin toss, Eagles win and defer, shockingly. Jake Elliott kicks it out of the back of the end zone, and here come the Patriots, 1st and 10 from the 25. What 2 Eagle linebackers will be on the field?
Wow. 2 linebackers. Well, Nakobe Dean is going to be number 1.
The first one's easy, yes.
Yeah. And then, I'd be lying if I said I had a pulse on this thing. I really don't know what direction they're going to go in at this time. And I can say that for safety as well, because I know that they were excited about Sidney Brown, but is it going to be Blankenship? And, is it going to be Edmonds, who they brought in from Pittsburgh, playing under Mike Tomlin? I don't know. I mean, it's at the point where I haven't even really thought about it because I'm so excited about Nakobe Dean, and we'll see who gets slotted in there after that. Yeah. I'm just kind of in that mode right now. But, yeah, I really don't know what direction they're going to go in. I guess that's what fascinates me is I don't know much about Sean Desai. I know last year we were aggravated. I thought Kaiser White held his own for a while, and Nakobe was soaking in the sponge on the side between him and TJ Edwards. He seems to be hungry and foaming out the mouth to get some playing time, and that's really where my mind has been at the linebacker position, so I'm excited to watch him grow. I don't know. I don't know where they go, but I'm excited to see it. What are your thoughts on it? I'm sorry if that's a horrendous answer.
No, it's a good answer. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
a lot of pressure when I come on with you too. You know what I mean?
I'm like you, Hunter. I'm a Howie guy. I think Jody's more of a Howie guy than a Howie hater as well. Certainly.
Yeah.
But I look at that second linebacker spot, and it's Nick Morrow versus Christian Ellis.
It seems like Ellis is getting the most buzz out of what happened recently.
Well, we saw him for 100 minutes in the spring with nothing, and he played well. That's all you can gauge on, but he did play well. But we're still talking about Nicholas Morrow versus Christian Ellis. Yeah. I mean, to me, that's a problem.
Yeah.
On the scale of Eric Wilson to Kaiser White, to me, that's far closer to Eric Wilson than Kaiser White. And Kaiser White's just competence. That's what we're talking about. So the scale from disaster to competence, I think they're closer to disaster. And I think people are just saying, not that big of a deal. It's a devalued position, but come on. I mean, TJ Edwards and Kaiser White played 2,100 defensive snaps last year. They got to replace every single one of them. I'm with you guys with Nakobe. Tremendous upside, tremendous ceiling, but it's all upside. It's all projection. 2,100 snaps. Everybody's, for the most part, going, And we've seen terrible linebacker play for years.
Nate Gary?
It can go in it can go in a negative direction. Why is everybody?
Well, maybe it's Howie guys. We just have trust with him having his fingertips all over if it gets to the point.
Howie brought in Eric Wilson.
Yeah, I know.
Said.
And Nate Gary.
Can't just give the Howie will get it figured out thing, because when it comes to linebackers, Howie's made some mistakes.
You're right. Maybe they get to, I don't know what they do. And look, what if Ellis can play, then we're just wasting our breath right now. No one thought TJ Edwards could play. He was an undrafted guy from Wisconsin.
John and I both like TJ Edwards.
Yeah.
You're talking to the wrong guys here.
Listen,
I said last year they should get TJ signed to an extension. John was singing his praises from the first practice last season that this guy's going to be a very good linebacker for the Eagles. Well, no, we were both on the Edwards bandwagon early.
Okay, timeout. Listen, there was intrigue, Wisconsin, like there was something there. But did you think he'd run out as many snaps as John just mentioned when you first picked him up undrafted?
No, not back then.
Right.
He was ninth on the depth chart when he got here.
You know, Maybe we get a little something from Ellis. I don't know. Listen, all I'm saying, maybe they get some versatility, putting the safety in the box, doing this, doing that. I don't know. Look, Sean Desai has to push some buttons here if that ends up being the case. Or we watched Nate Gary get destroyed by tight ends nonstop. And you remember looking at the tight ends, it was like 10 catches, 190 yards, 8 catches, 170 yards. It was nonstop. Maybe we don't have an answer and then we're watching crap, but I don't think Howie's going to let that happen this year. But yeah, it could. And then we're in trouble.
All right, another question that I may stump you with, and I don't mean to do this, Hunter, because I think you're a smart guy, so I ask you hard questions.
Thank you.
Devonta Smith, already a top 10 wide receiver in the league?
Whew. He has some traits. His toe-tapping ability by the sidelines, he does it just like the best do. Top 10? Yeah, I think you can make the argument for sure. I mean, look, there's definitely another tier, but I think he can blossom and get into that tier by the end of it. So, yeah, I think he absolutely does. And for all the fear of he's too skinny, I've seen him take some shots and get up and be just fine. And I think over the seasons, he's going to bulk up and he's going to continue to get his body where it needs to be. So, yeah, for sure. I think you got to, between him and A.J. Brown, the question really becomes what's number 3? And I know Nick Sirianni's trying to pump the tires on Quez Watkins or, give him a little boost of energy. But, yes, to answer your question, yes, I think he is in that top 10.
All right, Hunter, I'm going to upset Eagles fans because why not? I'm going to criticize Jalen Hurts, and here's my criticism.
Can't slide in softball games?
He can't slide in softball games. Also, he's made things really, really difficult for Jody and I because we have to do this show during the NFL lull.
Yeah.
Where, they don't do anything between June 8th and training camp, which is July 25th. Last year, all we talked about was Jalen Hurts. Is Jalen Hurts going to do this? Is Jalen Hurts? We don't even talk about him. We don't even mention him. We don't even bring him up because have you ever seen anything like it from somebody who was advanced from a solid prospect to a superstar in a calendar year that everybody's like, oh, this guy, yeah. He's locked in. He's basically, Joker, winning NBA. He's locked in. Don't worry about him. We'll talk about everything else. Have you ever seen that leap in a calendar year?
It's hard to pick one out, because I'm going back to, previously Carson Wentz's first year went 7-9 with Doug Peterson, but you still saw the traits of a big, tall, strong quarterback and someone who can air the ball out. We didn't have the same questions that we did on Jalen Hurts. I didn't know if he had the arm strength. I didn't know if he could read the field properly. Todd Bowles literally dared him to use the left side of the field in a playoff game, and it was extremely one-sided, knowing that he had plenty of room to grow, but who would have thought that he'd be in the MVP conversation right behind Patrick Mahomes the following season after Todd Bowles is laughing, asking him to use the left side of the field. So, no, I really can't remember a shift this big. And you're right. I think at this point we just kind of automatically write him in because of the way he approaches the game, the way he's obsessed with his craft. It's just like nonstop football 24/7 for the guy. And I can't remember a time that someone made this level of jump with the fan base. Like, I haven't come across anyone with questions at all. Not one.
It's unbelievable. He is just.
It's a credit to him, though, right? I mean,
but
every time we bring this up, it's funny because sometimes, like I said, we get lost in like Sixers, Phillies, but once in a blue moon, like we brought on Dave Zangaro just to give us a little refresh, or Tim McManus just to give us a little buzz of the Eagles, and then we get sidetracked in the Eagles stuff. And someone brought up pretty recently, a couple of days ago, because we were giving Jalen Hurts a ton of praise, and we were talking about what he's doing off the field. He's on magazine covers. Like, this guy's bigger than just football. He's got the possibility of being more of like a face of football to a degree. Yeah. And someone brought up the fumble, and it was like, how come you never bring up the big turnover in the Super Bowl and no one's ever knocking him for giving the other team 7 points? And I thought, well, he did respond right after that with a pretty impressive drive. And all along, you look at a game with the lights are shining bright. He was magnificent. But I'm like, he did have the big turnover, and no one ever seems to bring that up at all. Now, I don't either, to be fair. He did so much well. He did 15 things great, one thing wrong, and that one thing wrong did cost you. But, we just forget.
Well, he is a human being. I'm not trying to say he doesn't have any flaws. Yeah, he is a human being. So all NFL players are going to make mistakes. He happened to make a big mistake. Jody and I were talking about ball security. Jody brought up the turnover. And I said, yeah, but what I'm talking about is compared to everybody else. He takes care of the football.
Yes.
Is there going to be an outlier? Yeah. And unfortunately, that outlier happened on a pretty big stinking stage, but he was the best player on the stinking field that day.
Yes, he was. And that was my response. It's like, come on, we're going to not – the kid in the first Super Bowl ever. First off, look at the year he had. Really? We're going to start – but he's like, oh, the biggest game if it was McNabb. And I'm like, oh, yeah, all right, we're not doing this. We're not doing – let's get back to the
Two things. Number one, after the fumble, he puts up the next 10 points. Yes. And the Eagles are up by 10 points at half. So that certainly it doesn't erase it, but it lessens it. When you give up the big play and you immediately respond and you're back up by 10 points going into half, it's not nearly as painful. The other thing that bothers me is Nick Bolton made a pretty good play scooping that ball up and getting it into the end zone. That's why I ask you about linebackers, Hunter, because the Eagles don't see the sweat linebackers. They come, they go, 1-year contracts, guys here wide. We can do this again. Yeah, I'd take Nick Bolton.
Here's another thing to the –
give me Nick Bolton. I'd take him if I were Howie Roseman.
Listen, another thing with the whole linebacker debacle, if it happens to be one, we don't know yet. Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Fletcher. Listen, if you're just eating and you're going to town, now I don't think we're going to be sniffing 70 sacks, but if you're eating in those trenches and getting to the quarterback, the deficiencies in that linebacker position, maybe it's not as ugly because you're doing damage. How about that? How about that for a little optimism?
I like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys aren't buying it at all. Look at you.
Yeah, Nicholas Morrow's still Nicholas Morrow. Sorry about that.
This is the problem.
No matter how good the guys in front of him are.
You two speak Birds 365 nonstop, so that doesn't tickle your fancy. You're like, oh, I heard this before.
At Prodes81, make sure you follow Hunter on Twitter. Does a tremendous job. Co-host of the best show ever on 97.5 The Fanatic. It is the best show ever. And I fit comfortably nestled in number 2. I'll take number 2A, whatever. I'll leave it here because you're mentioning some of the things, Morrow. When Nick Sirianni, I want to get Hunter Brody's thoughts when Nick Sirianni jumps on his sword for Quez Watkins or tells you Kerry Vincent Jr. is going to be a player, or tells you, brings up Trey Sermon unprompted. When he brings up lower level guys on the roster, what's your first thought? He's just bullshitting you, or is he really believing it? He's just protecting his guys. Why do you think Nick does that?
It's a case-by-case study. Or a case-by-case situation, I guess I should say. Sometimes I think maybe it's possible that they're pumping tires for trade value. Sometimes I think it's Nick Sirianni just being Nick Sirianni, and he's always going to go down with his guys, and he's always going to praise them. Even if someone has an awful day, he'll find a way to spin it where it's like, hey, we know we need to get better in this area, but there was a third down that he was special on, or there was a big block down the field as a wide receiver that A.J. Brown doesn't score. If who knows, Quez Watkins wasn't blocking on the other side. He'll just kind of stretch it and try and sell that positivity because that's part of the relationship and the bond that he always stresses with how he wants to communicate with his team. But I think it is case by case, depending on who it is and where they are in the depth chart and where they think they could do. Maybe it's for some trade value and some spark with some buzz just because that's what you do. And other times it's because it's the Nick Sirianni way, and you always go down with your guys.
Here's where I hope it is, and I if you ask me, that's what I would say. I don't know. Nick Sirianni's the only one who can answer the question. That some guys need a pat in the back, and some guys need a kick in the ass. And when they need a pat on the back, he's ready, willing, and able to do it in front of all the media members and get the word out to Eagle Nation. When they need a kick in the ass, he waits till behind closed doors. He's not going to do that. He's not going to address anybody. Some coaches will. Mike Malone, I took calls on my national show. Oh, the Nuggets are going down. Did you hear Mike Malone second guess his players after they got beat by Miami in that one game? Oh, yeah, that really tore Denver down. All they did was rip off 3 games in a row. So you can strategically give your players a hard time through the media. That's not Sirianni. He's going to keep that all that behind closed doors. He'll sing praises out loud so everybody can hear them. But when he gets critical, I think he does it team-only stuff. Hunter, we appreciate your jumping in and being part of our team today. Give your crew over there at the best show ever our regards, and we'll get you back up again before camp gets underway.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, bud.
Hunter Brody from the best show ever here with us on Birds 365. All right, we're going to come back. We're going to put on a bow on the show, and we're going to get out early, fans. Just in case you need to get over to Ticketmaster to grab those individual game tickets for the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll come back, put a bow on the show next.